Welcome back to Wild Outdoor Living. Today I'm going to tell you a story that occurred over 12 years ago. It's a story I've been trying to make a video about for a long time. Over several years I've made several different takes. I've scrapped all of them or I haven't finished filming them all together. So it happened back in 2007, November of 2007. I was a junior in high school. I was 17 years old and I had been an avid cyclist for about 2 to 3 years at this point. So that morning I woke up early like I always did back in those days. It was dark, it was probably 5:30 or 6. I had planned on riding to fire science that morning, so I took dual enrollment classes, fire science at the college and high school in the afternoon. And I planned to ride the couple of miles to my fire science class and then the 20 miles from fire science to my high school. And I had planned that ahead of time. When I woke up that morning, I wasn't really feeling it, but at the same time, the El Tour de Tucson was coming up in a week. It was outside, it was a great day, it was sunny, great weather. Everything was great that morning. So I set off, went up the highway, and made my way over to the next town where we went to high school. So about halfway up the road, there is a turn off of the highway and it takes you onto a smaller B road. If I was to take that road, it would definitely make me late for class. But as I approached the road, I had this feeling that I just wanted to go for a longer ride and just, hey, go enjoy the empty pavement and just have a good time on this road. And it didn't really make any sense. It would definitely have made me late. I was already struggling in one of my classes and I needed to get to school. So despite that feeling, that kind of out of place feeling, I kept going and I continued down the highway. Several miles down the highway, as we actually get into town, I'm probably 3 or 4 miles from school at this point. I had this feeling that I wanted to turn right again and turn into onto this road that goes into an industrial park there in town. This was a weird feeling because not only was this not a pretty road, but it was kind of a square in terms of the way it was laid out. So if I turned onto that road, I would basically end up back on the same road, just having ridden extra distance. But still, I felt like I wanted to turn off. At the same time, I didn't. I kept going. I continued down the normal direct route into town. As I turned on Main Street, it became quite clear that there was definitely some road construction going on. Traffic was pretty packed, it was pretty dense, and it was very slow moving. So I was in and out of traffic, I was passing people and people were passing me. I was trying to keep it pretty safe, but at the same time there was just a lot of traffic, there wasn't really a shoulder to work with, and that just was kind of the situation I was in as I went down Main Street. There was one truck in particular that that I just couldn't quite get away from. Either I would pass him or he would pass me, and he never seemed to get too far ahead and I never seemed to get too much in front of him either. So me and this particular truck passed several times. As I turned off of Main Street, there's just one more road to go to get to my high school, and at this point we're maybe a mile from school, and as I turn onto this road, I found myself next to this truck. And as he slowed to a stop, I advanced forward, except he didn't stop. He made a right turn into a parking lot. I was near the front of the truck when this happened, and as I saw him start to make this right turn, I basically had nowhere to go. So I tried to turn with the truck, but there wasn't really enough room to make that turn. And what room I had to work with, I ended up using up by sliding into the truck. Either grabbed too much rear brake or there really wasn't too much I could do on a skinny tired road bike at the time. So I did my best to turn, but I ended up slamming into the front passenger side of the truck with my bike and ended up getting ejected off my bike and thrown initially upwards, I think a couple feet up and over in front of the hood. And then, of course, I came down in front of the truck. And, despite the fact that there was probably adrenaline pumping and, I was in the moment and you would expect that there wouldn't be much pain, this was a huge impact and I felt it throughout my entire body. It nearly put me in a daze. It was a shock to me just how hard that concrete felt at the time. And I think my initial instinct would have probably been to stay there and see if there was anything broken, see if anything had happened. But luckily that was not my initial instinct. When I hit the ground, the first thing I thought was just the word like scramble. And that probably doesn't make any sense to anybody else. But when I was 13, 14, I got really into bull riding, into rodeos and that sort of thing. And so one of the things that I trained for was to try to just get out of the way as fast as possible when I did come off the bull. So my little keyword was scramble. So I'd fall off a hay bale or something and just say scramble, and then I would crawl and try to get up and just get out of the way as fast as I could. And that's what came into my head when I hit the ground. So I started scrambling. I started just trying to get up and trying to crawl. And I also had the prompting almost instantly at the same time to look behind me. So I looked behind me over my shoulder, and I realized that the truck, not only is it still moving, but the driver's side tire is directly behind me. And I had two choices. So I could either roll to the left and try to get completely out of the way of the truck, or I could roll to the right and go under the middle. And unfortunately, I was already towards the center. So I was behind the rear tire, but I wasn't completely centered on it. I was definitely towards the center of the truck. So I made half a turn, and that's all I got before the truck slammed into me. I did my best to hang on to the bumper, to hang on to the grill, whatever I could do. But that didn't last very long. While it did, I was being dragged along my face at one point. Wasn't super excited about what I was going to find later, but I was getting dragged along. And eventually I got pulled underneath the truck. And as I got pulled under, I thought of several different people, more of a group of people, I guess, that would probably be pretty hurt and saddened, I guess, if I was to be killed in this incident. And so I was just doing my best to just stay out of the way and just try to just keep moving in the situation. As I get dragged under, I start to get tumbled end over end, kind of somersault style. I'm getting slammed on top of my head, and then I'm rolling. But for the most part, I mean, everything is still working at this point. I'm still tumbling. I'm getting slammed into the ground, but I never had the thought at this moment, at least, that this was going to kill me. I just knew I was getting really injured, and that I wanted to get out of this, but I never felt like I was dying until eventually. Basically, as everything is tumbling and it's all working, and it's going to be okay, all of a sudden all of that ends, and I'm still conscious, but I'm on my back with my shoulder blades on the ground. My hips are over the top of me, and I am getting pinned underneath the truck. The rolling has stopped, and I'm getting pinned, and the pressure that I felt on my body is like nothing I could possibly describe. Everything was black, but I could feel the full weight of this truck. And essentially what had happened is I got stuck underneath a support structure, whether it's an axle or part of the motor, I don't remember. But I got pinned underneath part of this truck as his back tires came up on the curb. This parking lot kind of slopes down, and as the back tires came up, of course the front end came down, and there just wasn't enough room for me anymore under there. And so I got pinned, and all the pressure of that truck started building on me, and the more it built up, the more I started to think that at any moment my body was just going to explode. And it came to the point that I knew it was over. I knew there was no way a human body can possibly hold up a truck of this size, or of any size that matter. And I knew it was done. And all the fighting I had been doing, and all the strategizing I had been going through my mind, and all of a sudden all I felt was peace. And as this pressure built up, I just cried out for help, essentially, and not physically, but I basically cried out in prayer. So I just just reached out basically for God, and asked for him, say, let's go, I'm ready. I would basically felt like, hey, like, the prayer was, it's one of these instant prayers that is going on in your mind, and you're thinking everything at once. And I basically was praying to either get out and survive, or that I'm ready to go. I've accepted that we're going, and I felt completely at peace about that at the moment. But I also had this feeling that I needed to just keep pushing against the truck as long as I could. And I knew that wouldn't last very long, but that at least I should try with everything I have and leave nothing on the table. And so that's what I did. I just pushed in that kind of compressed squash state. At the end, I just pushed as hard as I possibly could. And the next thing I knew, all of that ended. And I'm tumbling again. I've been, all the pressure is gone. I've been released from this spot I've been stuck in, and I'm rolling again. And I do a couple more rolls, and then the truck comes to a stop. And as I do these couple more rolls, one, I learned that this arm has something very wrong with it. Definitely something was broken on this left side. And as I come to it, I kind of finish my last roll. I come to this kind of sitting up position with my feet towards the front of the truck, and then I kind of lay back. And as I lay back, I realize that my back really hurts. And that was kind of a scary moment, but it was also a little bit of relief at the same time, because I could still feel everything, but I knew that there could possibly be an issue with my back. So I lay back, so I take a breath, and I realize that the truck has stopped. I now have an opportunity to get out from underneath this truck. So regardless of the pain I felt, I did my best to scoot from the center of the truck where I was out from underneath it. Definitely didn't feel like I could roll over at this point, so I just scooted on my back and kind of scooted hips first towards the driver's door. I made it to where I was basically just behind the driver's side front tire, and the pain had just been building and building and building in my back, and I just couldn't scoot anymore. And this is where those pictures come that look so scary and confused so many people who were trying to figure out how I ended up where I ended up. And it was difficult for people to understand that I had moved myself from where I was after the accident, but I did my best to get out from underneath. And when I stopped, I just had to hope the truck wasn't going to move again, and luckily it didn't. So as I stop there, I reach up and I try to feel my head and my helmet, and all I feel is my hair. And I think, why would I not have worn a helmet today? That seems really weird, considering I never do that. I always wear a helmet. I was always made to when I was growing up, and it just seemed really odd. I couldn't figure out where my helmet was until I realized that it was hanging along my shoulders in several different pieces and had just been shattered and removed from my head. And then I also realized that my left glove was missing, and for a few seconds I tried to figure out where my glove had gone. I had a glove on this hand, and this one was just gone somewhere. If you look in pictures, you can see where that ended up. It was discovered later that this arm did get run over by the tire, and in the process, this glove was pulled off, wrapped over the tire, and dumped on the other side. So about this time, the driver decides to step out. Now, it's been about 12 years since this happened, and for a while, I kind of suspected he might have done it on purpose. And if I tell you exactly what happened in our conversation, you may come to the same conclusion. But at the same time, I can't imagine what must have been going on in his mind, how scared he must have been. So I have forgiven him for any part that he played in that. I highly doubt he was malicious in any way. That's long gone. That's been hashed out. It's over. So that's not something we're going to talk about, but we did have a little bit of a conversation. The first thing he asked me was if I wanted to call 911, and I didn't answer at first because I thought I might check myself over and see if I needed to, which of course is just, a 17-year-old's rational thought. But when he asked me again, I said, yeah, we should probably do that. So there was a witness that came over, and when the witness came over, I tried to sit up, and I noticed that one eye was looking over in this direction and my other eye was looking normally and straight. And after I blinked a few times, everything kind of came back together, but things definitely felt really weird with my face. If I wasn't good looking before, I'm definitely not now, and that's kind of going to be the end of it, as conceited as that probably sounds. But that was the first thing that came to my mind when I realized that something had gone wrong with this side of my face. So the paramedics show up, and when the paramedics show up, this is where I get an idea that maybe I've hit my head pretty hard, because and I didn't even hardly register this at the time, to be honest. It kind of dawned on me later, especially as the story was retold by others. But when the paramedics showed up, they kind of recognized me immediately. My dad worked in the fire department, and as these paramedics showed up, they said, "Hey, isn't that so-and-so's boy?" And it was comforting to me, to be honest. But then they asked me what my dad's name was, and I couldn't say it. It was in my head, and I just couldn't make it come out of my mouth until they said, "Hey, is it so-and-so?" And I said, and I could confirm that, but I couldn't actually say his name. They checked me over, they get me strapped to a backboard, we get an ambulance, and we take off. In the ambulance ride, they're asking me more questions. I'm answering them for the most part, but they're reporting that I'm still kind of off. We talked a little bit about the race because my phone actually was in my pocket. It was the only piece of equipment that did not break. It was a Motorola Razr Silver from way back in the day. Nothing on that phone broke. I actually got a text message while I was laying underneath the truck. But the paramedic was looking at it. He said, "Hey, what's this picture of this bike?" That he knew had just been like completely smoked. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm supposed to race that week, but that's not going to happen." But that was fine. And so we go to the hospital. And the hospital was kind of a whole other ball game. To be honest, it was maybe worse than being run over in the first place. Probably 12 to 25 people working on me at a time. They're running a whole bunch of tests. And I have to admit, if any of you guys are watching that were there, I am sorry because I had a bit of a meltdown during this hospital visit. Kind of one thing led to another. I got upset and started swinging at everybody. I ripped my leg off the backboard. One of them was attached, and the other one I kind of ripped out of the strap. I had, of course, one bad hand, but that was the hand I decided to start swinging at people with. And luckily, they were able to calm me down. Before any of that even happened, my dad was there. While I was in the ambulance and while I was even on the ground, some people had to make some calls to my parents. So they call my dad. He marches himself down to the emergency room, walks into the hospital entrance like he owns the place. Not long after that, my mom shows up. But I can't imagine what that might have been like to receive that phone call. But they continue to run tests. They shove a tube up my nose and down into my stomach. They pump out a bunch of red Gatorade, and luckily I was conscious to explain what that was and kind of dispel the immediate concerns that caused. We spent a few more, agonizing hours on a backboard. Oh my goodness. You don't want to spend a long time on a backboard. If you've done it, you know what I'm talking about. I wanted to be off that backboard so bad. But until all those tests were done and all the results were in, they were not going to let me off that backboard. So we spent a long time on the backboard. But after x-rays, CAT scans, and a bunch of other tests, I was told that I had lacerated my eyelash, which I knew because it had cut it all the way through and I could actually see through the slit if you were to pull it back. So that needed stitches. I was told that my thumb was broken, but that it didn't need surgery. And that other than a whole bunch of road rash, I had bruised my kidneys, and that was it. That was all it was. So they splinted my thumb. They sewed my eyelash back together. And They wheeled me to the door, and then I walked out of the hospital from there after 8 hours since the accident. Most people that get run over spend months in the hospital if they're even lucky enough to be in the hospital in the first place. And I was able to walk out 8 hours later. A week later, though, I was still having a lot of issues. In fact, I was having some new issues. My foot was turning blue, my hand was turning green, and my back was still really hurting me. I had tried to go for a little jog after a few days, after I could finally see out of this eye, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't even get off the ground. I could just sort of very slowly walk along. So when we went back in to get the stitches out of my eyelash, we said, hey, how about we just run some tests again and just see what's going on, see if we missed anything. And I thought maybe we'll miss a thing here or there. Maybe there'll be some minor add-ons. Maybe they just need to give me some more time to heal. That was my expectation. What they came back with, though, after another MRI, more x-rays, was that my foot was broken. So I didn't even realize that in the hospital. It likely happened when I got ejected from the bike. I actually tore the sole of my clipless shoe as I got ripped out of that pedal. So that's probably when my foot broke. Not a huge deal though, wasn't displaced, just needed a boot. I was told that this thumb was broken in 2 places and actually definitely needed surgery, and it should have been done already. So surgeon wasn't super happy about that, but I have a nice scar from that experience. My ring finger was broken, and I had broken my back. So I had crushed, they call it a compression fracture. I had crushed my L1, compressed more than 50%. I had fractured my L5, and they weren't 100% sure, but they did believe that there were some additional hairline fractures in some of the other vertebrae, especially up in my neck. And I could definitely feel that, but those 2 lumbar vertebrae were broken. So luckily not displaced. There was a chip of bone in my spinal canal. They said it wasn't something they were really worried about, but they would keep an eye on it. And so I left that hospital the second time with a lot more injuries than I originally thought I had. Ended up getting fitted for a back brace, spent several months in a back brace, got the surgery done on my thumb, walked around in a boot for a while. But overall, really not bad. It could not have gone better. After the accident, I went on to not finish fire science because it took several months to heal, and the second year of fire science is a lot more physical. But after I was healed up and everything was good, I graduated high school, I joined the Marines, I got married, I have 3 wonderful kids, and I continue to ride my bike as much as I want to. I can do everything I could do before and more. And while I have a lump in my back that hurts on hard benches and makes road trips a little bit of a challenge in certain vehicles, it's not too bad. I am left-handed, so it was pretty important that healed up. My face is only slightly lopsided. You can't even probably see it on camera. I can see it in the mirror. My eyebrows don't really line up anymore, but overall, it could not have gone better. I'm making this video because while I 100% respect and support everyone doing what they love doing, regardless of what the consequences may be, and accepting those risks because I think that's part of life, I'm also tired of seeing people killed for no reason. Whether it's on a bicycle or just in your car, people get killed on our roads on such a basis that it's too much. Too many young people, too many old people. There's so many reasons why you might pass someday and why you will pass someday. But statistically, people will die on the highways. It's going to happen. But on an individual basis, almost all of those fatalities can be prevented. Well, I couldn't have prevented what happened to me at the time. If I was in that situation now, I would have approached the entire thing differently, and I would have been able to avoid getting in that situation in the first place. I think back to all the things that have happened to others, and it's not always their fault. It might not even be someone else's fault, but there are things we can do to make things safer. And if this video just causes you guys to be a little bit more purposeful and put a little bit more thought into these activities that you're doing, whether it's just commuting to work or going for a bike ride, if it causes just one person or two people, to put just a little bit more thought into what they're doing, something like this could happen to me again. It's entirely possible that I will get taken out by this sport that I love so much. And I know that many of you are willing to take that risk. I also know that many of you are unaware of the risks involved in the sport of cycling, especially on the road. And I think a lot of people don't realize just how serious it can be. So I want to make this video to help educate those and let you guys make the decision on whether or not you think it's worth it to go out on the road, or to go out on a particular road, or out on a particular day, or in a particular condition. And I want to help you guys just draw the line for yourselves. I used to road cycle a bunch. That was basically all I did. Now I mountain bike the most. I ride on dirt roads as much as I can. And if I ride on a paved road, I do it for a reason. I try to do it as safely as possible, and I try to think about the risks. I can't eliminate them, but I try to make sure I've at least given it some thought. So for all of those that have been killed or maimed in a sport that we love so much, I'm sorry. I wish that we all could have done more for you. I wish that what had happened to you guys had not happened. And I'm sorry that I got off so lucky while you didn't, because I certainly didn't deserve more than you did. But I will always remember that. Thank you.